Ladies and gentlemen, please rise to welcome our guest of honor, Yang Berhormat Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah, Deputy Minister of Higher Education.
Berbahagia Profesor Dr. Rohana Yusof, Deputy Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, University of Malaya, Professor Dr. Tan Yu Chai, the Dean of the Faculty of Economics and Administration of University of Malaya, Mr. Wan Saiful Wanjan, Chief Executive Officer of Ideas, respected speakers, distinguished guests, lecturers, and fellow students.
Welcome to the series of seminars towards high-income economy, understanding economic and market liberalization.
This series of seminars is initiated by Ideas, which is Malaysia's first think tank dedicated to promote market-based solutions to public policy changes.
Ideas had this series of seminars launched last January at the Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia, before moving to Universiti Putra Malaysia and today at the University of Malaya. As the name implies, the seminar will be a discussion on what are the criteria for a country to achieve a high-income economy. To begin our event for today, it gives us great pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Tan Yu Chai, the Dean of Faculty of Economics and Administration, to deliver his speech. Please welcome.
Right, thank you. Well, good afternoon and a big welcome to our distinguished guest, Yang Berhormat Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, and Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Rohana Yusof, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Affairs and Alumni of University of Malaya. And also to Yang Berusaha, Encik Wan Saiful Wan Zain, the CEO of Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, Ideas, and also to ladies and gentlemen. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Yang Berhormat Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah for being with us this afternoon to keep track with the series of seminars towards high-income economy. The faculty in particular is indeed very honored by the presence of Yang Berhormat Datuk. Our appreciation also goes to Yang Berbahagia Professor Datuk Dr. Rohana Yusof for having taken time off from her very busy schedule of managing the university affairs, in particular the student affairs, so as to be with us for this event. Thanks also due to Ideas for co-organizing this intellectual forum with the faculty. The faculty is looking forward to greater collaboration with Ideas, especially in research, so that both institutions can work hand in hand to provide useful policy inputs to the government. This is with the hope that our beloved nation can forever be a sovereign, democratic and independent state founded upon the principles of liberty and justice, and one which is ever seeking to promote the welfare and happiness of its people in line with the vision of our beloved Bapa Malaysia, the late Yang Amat Mulia Tuanku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Haj. Being the oldest economics faculty in the country, it should be responsive to the socio-economic needs of the people by contributing to the crafting of appropriate national development and macroeconomic stabilization policies. It should complement Ideas in terms of contributing to civil society and nation building. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate Ideas for having being ranked as the 18th best new think tank globally in 2010 out of 6,480 think tanks in 169 countries by the University of Pennsylvania and United Nations University. No small thanks are also due to members of PEKUMA, Persatuan Ekonomi University of Malaya, who have provided their very able assistance to the faculty in making this afternoon's event a great success. For your information, PEKUMA is a students' association of the faculty, and I would like to report directly to Yang Berhormat that quite a significant number of our students have been receiving excellent job ratings from their prospective employers via their participation in the industrial training program. I have been enlightened that this afternoon's seminar will focus on explaining and discussing what makes a nation wealthy and what are the criteria for achieving a high-income economy. Specifically, it will revolve around questions such as why are some nations richer than others? What does it take to become a wealthy nation? Why are liberalization and economic freedom necessary? And what do we need as a nation to become a high-income economy? So these are by no means easy questions with clear-cut and neat answers. We should hope that frequent discussion of these questions would eventually help us find more definitive answers to them. The answers are not invariant to time and space. There are too many parameters to deal with, and there are at least two approaches to addressing such questions. One could address such questions from the perspective of an English common law system versus the French civil law system, or from the perspective of a developmental state versus a night watchman state. Hence, our appreciation should also be extended to the speakers this afternoon, Dr. Ong Kian Ming and Mr. Paul Allen Brown, who will be leading this afternoon's discussion. On that note, let us wish that we'll have a very meaningful and beneficial session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor, for the speech. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives us great honor to invite Yang Berhormat Datuk Saifuddin Abdullah, the Deputy Minister of Higher Education, to deliver his opening speech. Please welcome.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera dan salam satu Malaysia. A small advice to the Master of Ceremony: when you invite politicians like me to speak, you don't invite me to give a speech. You simply say, we would like to invite you to say a few words. Inviting me to give an opening speech, then I will ask for the closing speech. The first and the last time I spoke in this faculty was when I was campaigning for Shabri Chik in the MPP election many years ago. So thank you for having me again this afternoon. Professor Datuk Rohana, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, Yang Teramat Mulia Tunku Zainal Abidin, President of IDIAS, and Wan Saiful, the CEO of IDIAS, Professor Tan Yu Chai, Dekan Fakulti Ekonomi dan Pentadbiran, speakers, brothers and sisters. I would like to congratulate IDIAS on organizing this third series of the many forums that they plan to organize in perhaps all of our universities in this country. And I also like to congratulate FEA for hosting it. I'm actually trying to look for someone whom I promised to meet up here. Oh, you're the one. You're the guy. Okay. So we have a date after this. Yeah. Not on video. Okay. No. It's okay. The main topic for this afternoon is high income economy. Let me, my beloved brothers and sisters, share one or two things with you before our distinguished speakers take the floor. Two things basically. Number one of the important thing that we need to do is, of course, to ensure that we nurture sufficient number of, I don't really like this terminology, but for lack of better words, human capital to propel or to move the nation forward to become what we call a high income economy. But as we look into our program, our education program and our training programs in trying to nurture the kind of human capital needed by and suitable for a high income economy, let us also not forget the fact that perhaps we should also look at the way we look at jobs. If you look at the government documents, jobs in this country are categorized in a certain manner. There are jobs which are considered critical, or they fall under critical areas or critical field of studies. Okay? And then we classify jobs like a ladder. The topmost is considered or is called professional and management, and then you have a few other layers below it. Well and good, it is probably one of the ways of looking at jobs, but perhaps it is also about time that we look at new classification of jobs, not merely based on qualifications and the type of jobs, but rather the functions of a particular job. I'm reminded of a well-written book by Professor Robert Reich. He used to be a lecturer at Harvard, and then he served President Bill Clinton as the Secretary of Labor, one of the good ones. Yeah. And Bill Clinton's legacy, besides Monica Lewinsky, is of course during his time as president, I think the US enjoyed probably one of the lowest percentage of unemployment in modern history, and with the biggest number of new jobs being created. The title of his book, which was published in 1992, was or is The Works of Nation. And he proposed that we look at jobs in new classification. So he tried to classify jobs into new classifications, and he mainly divide jobs into three categories, namely what is considered routine jobs, secondly of a higher level, what is considered as problem solving, and thirdly at the topmost is what is considered as creative or innovative. And if you were to compare the old classification and the new classification, I mean, this is how I try to make relevant his writing. In the old classification, an engineer would definitely be at the top of the ladder. But if his or her job is only to do routine work, in the new classification, he or she is actually at the bottom of the ladder. An artist, whom in the old category or in the old classification would be at the bottom of the ladder, in the new classification, he or she would be at the top of the ladder. And the income need not necessarily be based on qualification or where you come from, but rather what is the outcome of the thing that you do, that you offer to the market or to the society. That's one thing that I would like to throw as a matter of sharing with you. The second thing is about the need for us to ensure that we have the right ecosystem. And let me underline the word right. Again, for the lack of better word, it is not necessarily the best word to use. We are actually dealing, I mean, if we are talking in terms of high income economy, we are actually dealing with knowledge workers, we are actually dealing with creative people and highly motivated people. And an ecosystem that is still based on a one size fits all, cannot work in this regard. Creative people, highly motivated people, knowledge workers by definition have different kinds of motivation, attitude, and work style. So if you want to attract people to work in your organization, in your business, and in our context, in our country, then we really have to review many of the procedures that has been there for a long, long time. It's not just about the salary scheme or the scheme of service. It is about the ecosystem. If you want to attract some of the researchers from overseas, and some of them are Malaysian, mind you, how do we deal with a Malaysian who have been born outside the country and studied there throughout his or her life, did his or her PhD and lectured in some of the top universities, and then we want to offer them a tenureship in University of Malaya, and suddenly we found out that he or she does not have SPM. And all we can offer to him or her is a contract when he or she is actually expecting a full tenureship. We have to address these kind of issues, among others. So, my brothers and sisters, just a simple two things. Number one, perhaps we should revisit our job classification to ensure that we actually optimize the role of these knowledge workers. And secondly, we should also seriously look at the ecosystem so that we can actually motivate people to work and produce their best. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We call upon Professor Dr. Tan Yu Chai to present a token of appreciation to Datuk Saifuddin.
Thank you, Datuk, for saying a few words, and thank you, Doctor.
Now allow me to invite our moderator for today, Mr. Wan Saiful Wanjan, the CEO of Ideas, to take his seat at the front and take over the ceremony. Please welcome.
My name is Wan Saiful Wanjan. This is extremely formal, and I have always been complaining that all the events that we do at universities are very, very formal, and it's not the best way for students to learn, I think. So I'm going to break the protocol completely today, and if I may turn this into a more interactive session, if possible. Can I invite Dr. Ong Kian Ming and Mr. Paul Brown to join us? Right. The topic for today is towards high-income economy, understanding economic and market liberalization. So we're hoping that through the two presentations that we're going to have today, we're supposed to have three, but the other speakers could not make it at the very last minute, so I do apologize. But hopefully through the two speakers that we have today, we will understand a little bit more about why we need to liberalize our economy. And if I may just take this opportunity to explain what IDEAS is and why we're doing this in the universities that we're visiting. IDEAS is an independent think tank. We are a very small organization, we are a young organization, but we're also a very ambitious organization. We launched ourselves on the 8th of February 2010, last year, so we're just over a year now. And we dedicate ourselves to promoting four things: rule of law, the free market, limited government, and free individuals. Now, these four principles are what we believe can be classified as the classical liberal ideas. And I think we are one of the very, very few organizations in the country who commit ourselves to a particular line of thinking and do our best to promote those ideals. So this series of seminars that we have here is funded by two organizations. One is Atlas Economic Research Foundation in the US, and the other one is the International Policy Network in the UK. The purpose of the seminar series, when I say series, well, I'm saying series because there are 5 seminars that we are organizing. This is actually the 4th one. We have done one at UKM with Datuk Saifuddin as well. We have done seminars also in UIA, in UPM, and this is the 4th one, and we're doing another one in Nottingham, I think tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Thursday, sorry, on Thursday. So that's a series of seminars that we are organizing. And the reason why we're doing it is there are so many talks about the need to liberalize the economy. There are so many talks about, if we want to move away from the middle income trap, we must open up our economy. But not many people are explaining why it's necessary. The government is trying the best to explain the benefits of doing that. But I think the more help that we can give, the better it will be. The more help we can give to explain why we need to open up our economy, the more acceptance there will be, hopefully, to the liberalization agenda, and hopefully the less resistance there will be especially from those who we would call as protectionists, people who want to protect the economy to benefit certain groups. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the details. Our speakers will do that. So, to start with, you all have this piece of paper, right, with the agenda and the biography of the speakers? Yeah? So, I am not going to read the biography of the speakers. That will sound very boring because you all can read as well. So, to start with, let me invite Mr. Paul Brown, Economic Counselor from the American Embassy, to give his presentation. Do you
want to sit or do you want to?
You want to sit or you want to? Are you sure?
Okay.
Yeah. And the slides here.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. And so my name is Paul Brown. I'm the Economic Counselor at the Embassy of the United States here in KL, and I'm very happy to be here this afternoon. A little bit scared. Such a big audience. Wow. Okay. It's good, though, and I'm glad you've all come out this afternoon. What I wanted to do is very general, and it's to give you something to think about more than anything else about the concept of open markets and open economies and what we talk about. And then because I'm an American government diplomat, I have to talk a little bit about what we're doing in the United States. But most of my presentation really is about my own thoughts on this. It's not a reflection of U.S. government policy, but it's the reflection of having spent 20 years of my career working in and around the world and observing different things and trying to come out of that process with some original thinking, which is very difficult. So you're not going to see too much original thinking here this afternoon, but you will hopefully have something to talk about in the Q&A period. So if we can maybe start the slides. I wanted to talk about the concept of open economies, You go to, and there are different ways that I guess people try to measure what an open economy is. One way is something called the Index of Economic Freedom, and I don't know how many of you have any awareness of that. It's something from a think tank in the United States called the Heritage Foundation. Does this every year in cooperation with the Wall Street Journal, and they're basically looking at a couple considerations. Are individuals free to work, produce, consume, and invest in any way that they please? Do governments allow labor, capital, and goods to move freely and refrain from coercion or constraint of liberty? Go to the next. I think what they're talking about here basically is that people in what the Heritage Foundation and the Wall Street Journal would consider to be a open economy, a free economy, basically have a lot of leeway to do whatever they want within an environment of minimal regulation. And so that's one way of looking at things. And then you can see here the top 10 countries on the Index of Economic Freedom. You've got Hong Kong number 1, and the scale here is 100 to 0, being 100 being the most economically free and 0 being the least free. And so Hong Kong is the top. The US is number 9 at 77, and then Malaysia is number 53 on the list. The scale is 66.3. And I indicated a couple countries, just I kind of noted countries that have free trade agreements with the United States, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a little bit. We go on to the next. There's another way of looking at it, though, and that's something that the World Bank has done, and maybe some of you are familiar with that. It's something called the Doing Business Report. And it came about, almost a decade ago, when the World Bank thought about the best way to measure how easy it is to do business in a country. And how many forms do you have to fill out? How long does it take to set up a business? All these kind of things that are very critical for economic activity. And they're looking at it from the perspective of small and medium-sized businesses. And so what they basically say is that for a country, for a concept of an open economy, ease of doing business, that governments should be committed to growing their economies in ways that focus more on just looking than just looking at the macroeconomic conditions. So they look at how easy it is to do business. They look at the legal and regulatory climate for business. But it's important to note that that doesn't mean there aren't any rules. We go to the next. A fundamental principle really is that there are rules, and that the rules are clear and transparent, and people know what they are, and they can see them. They're applied consistently, and that things like property rights are respected, predictability in economic activity, and there are measures to prevent people from exploiting and using those rules for their own gain, kind of rent-seeking behavior. So, next. So what the Doing Business report looks at is, okay, the best place to do business would be a place where the regulations are efficient, where they're accessible to everybody, you can clearly see what they are.